Making Your Marriage Work with your host, Steve and Connie Corona.
Hello, welcome to Making Your Marriage Work. I'm Connie Corona.
And I'm Steve Corona. Today we're going to continue the program that we started last week when we were talking about sex and intimacy in marriage. We have with us today, again, Mark Gungor. Mark has a ministry called Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. And Mark, it's good to have you with us again today.
It's good to be here.
We had a great time last time talking about sex and intimacy in marriage. I'm sure that some of you have called your friends and said, I can't believe that they talked about that stuff on television and they're going to do it again. So we're back, and Connie, you had a question that you wanted to ask Mark about marriage. Why don't you talk with him about that now?
Well, one of the things I hear from women is I just don't have time for sex. Now, even if you're not working outside of the home and you're a stay-at-home mom, if you've got children, you're going to find that your day is full up to the brim and then some. There's the old adage that a woman's work is never done comes into play here, and a lot of times women find that they're just exhausted by the end of the day, and that's for a woman that stays at home. What about the woman that works outside the home and then comes home and does everything else on top of the job that she carries outside the home? She finally wrestles those children down, gets them in the bed, gets them settled, and then she thinks, maybe now I can just get a little peace and quiet. She goes and gets in a nice warm tub of water and sits there to relax, and lo and behold, she looks up, and there, standing in the doorway, is that man with that look on his face. She just feels like slipping down under the water. Mark, what would you say to this woman?
Well, let me start with the guys first of all. I mean, the reality is, guys, help her, get a clue. You know, if you want an active sex life, and most men I know do, you know, you can't just, after eating dinner, slug off like Jabba the Hutt in front of the television set and zone out at the tube for hours on end while she's running around doing everything, and then all of a sudden expect her to just waltz in and just, you know, hey, come on, you know. Get a little bit of a clue here. Help her. She only has so much energy. So you need to get involved, make her life easier, all those kinds of things. But now, ladies, on this idea of, you know, well, what about sex? I have only so much time for this and only so much time for that. You've got to really reevaluate how you're thinking about sex, because sex has to be a priority in your marriage. And I've had women come up to me and say, well, I don't want to have sex. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Do you ever clean your toilet? And she goes, well, yeah. I say, do you want to clean the toilet? Well, no, I don't want to clean the toilet. Well, why do you got? Well, because I've got to. I said, you've got to start viewing your sex life not like it's a toilet, but then there's something you've got to deal with. You can't just ignore it because you don't feel like it. If you do that, you're going to get yourself in some serious trouble. You've got to make this a priority in your life. And it's not just women. On rare occasions, I have women come up to me in my seminars who, it's the opposite. It's turned around, where she's interested in sex and he's not. Mm-hmm. And I ask them the same question. I say, well, do you only do what you want to do? So, well, what do you mean? I said, well, do you only make the car payment because you want to? Well, no, I hate making a car payment. Well, then why do you do that? Well, because I'm going to lose my car if I don't. Well, you nitwit, you're going to lose your wife if you don't start paying attention to her physical needs, you know, at the same time. Sure. Sex isn't just when it's this, see, it's all part of this romanticized thing we were talking about last week, you know. Yeah. They figure it's got to be this right feeling in the wants and la 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 la. It's great when that's there, okay? But even if it's not there, you still have to meet the sexual needs of your spouse, which is what Paul was saying in 1 Corinthians. Mm-hmm. You do not have, as people of faith, now if you're a heathen, tune out, take a nap, it doesn't matter. But those of you who claim to be Christians, the Bible absolutely forbids and prohibits sexless marriage. You can't just choose to ignore that. You have got to meet the physical needs of your spouse, period. Mm-hmm. Period, okay? Well, I don't want to. So what? You still have to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm tired. We'll prioritize. you know. And we're not talking about having to have sex 3 times a day or you know, I mean, but it needs to be an area of the life that it has got to have a top priority. If you ignore this, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And you know what happens? The reason why people make the car payments right away is because they lose their car. There's an immediate response. That's why they do what they don't want to do. The reason they clean their toilet when they don't want to is things will start crawling out of there eventually. You know, it'll become a mess and it'll be embarrassing. It has immediate responses. The problem with marriage is that the response is so delayed. Mm-hmm. In other words, if you start doing the wrong thing today, you're not going to really feel it for years. And what happens is people come, you know, to guys like you and me, and they'll say, well, help me, my marriage is a disaster, like as if you could just tweak something right then and there. Right. But the reality is they're in a mess because of what they did way back here. Way back here, and now you've got a disaster on your hands.
And they want us to fix it overnight.
Oh yeah, of course. You know, sprinkle something on me, or sure. You know, do a dance or something. You know, and we can help. There's no question. But you've got to do the right things. If you neglect this area of your life, and we're only talking about one area today, this whole idea of sexual intimacy. I understand there's other areas, communication and but this is not a small issue. Mm-hmm. Men understand this is a central issue. Women do not. They think it's no big deal. It's no big deal. It is a huge deal to your husband. And if you neglect this area, you're going to get yourself in all kinds of trouble. One of the challenges that comes along in this area is, you know, what about children? Mm-hmm. I call children the anti-sex. Because they suck the life out of you, you know? And everything changes with children. I mean, physically she's not the same. Emotionally she's not the same. She's being touched all day long. You know, mommy, 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 mommy. They're just constantly all over. And then he comes home, you know, hey, baby, you know, it's not the same. Guys have to understand during this time of life, she's not the same. But ladies, he is. Right. Ain't nothing happened to him. He's still the same wild man as before. And women who use motherhood as an excuse to ignore the sexual needs of their husband do not realize what incredible damage they're doing to their relationship. Say, well, I need to be with him. I need that baby. I'll tell you what that baby needs. That baby needs a father. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he isn't going to have one if you don't meet the sexual needs of this husband, of this man. And they say, well, it shouldn't be about that. Well, you know, hello, wake out of fantasy land. It is about that. Mm-hmm. You don't need a marriage license from a Christian perspective to spend time with each other. You don't need a marriage license to take walks on the beach. You don't need a marriage license to be friends. You need a marriage license from a Christian perspective to have sex. The sex is like the fundamental central issue in marriage. Mm-hmm. And to allow this romantic nonsense to push it off to the side, you're really making a mistake. You've got to pay attention to this. And I know there's women right now who are thinking, oh, this is horrible. I hate this, you know, because of all the work and stuff. You need to sit down and talk to that boy and let him know, hey, this is an important part of our lives. I know you want more attention in this area. You need to help me. And he needs to know that he can win in this area.
You know, another reason, Mark, why women don't really care about their sex life or have lost interest in it is because they're not fulfilled in it.
Yeah. Here's a whole other issue. You want to go there? Let's go there.
Fun. You know, when something's fun, you're going to find time to do it.
Yes.
But when it's not fun. Yeah.
And there again, now it's the guy's fault. You know, guys get a clue here. You know, women need, you know, all a guy needs for great sex is for you to show up, girls. I mean, that's you know, that's it. We just need oxygen. You know, women are not that way. They've got to be touched. They've got to be talked to. They've got to be stroked. I mean, it's a different ballgame. It takes effort. Mm-hmm. It takes effort. You know, a word most men don't like, foreplay. You know, it means spending time with their wife. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of guys' idea of foreplay is, hey, you awake? You know, I mean, that is not foreplay. That is not, you know, and a lot of guys think in those terms. Right. They just want instant gratification because they're lazy. And a lot of men are lazy. I know I are one. You know, we don't like working at stuff. You know, we only work when we have to. But if you want a successful sex life, you have got to invest in this. So, first of all, if you're not meeting, if sex isn't fun for her, she's not going to want to do it. So it's going to take more time on your end to make sure that it's fun for her. The other thing too, and
Well, before you go to that other thing, let me ask you something about
kind of
this.
avoiding the other thing. But
No. We want to hear about the other thing. But before we go there, what about how does a wife communicate with her husband about the very things that you're talking about here? I'm imagining that there are wives watching this program that are thinking, yeah, I wish my husband understood what you're talking about how it's not fun for me because his idea of foreplay is, hey, are you awake? There's more to it than that. How does the wife communicate this to her husband?
well,
Without making him defensive, to be able to draw him in a way that he's going to receive it.
yeah. It's going to sound like a sales pitch, and it's not intended to be, but I mean, one of the great things about the whole way that we present stuff to couples is through this very funny presentation. If you're uncomfortable talking to your husband about this stuff, go on our website, laughyourway.com, order my DVD. It's only about a little over an hour long. It is hilarious.
Yes.
It is a scream.
It's great. We
and
got
I'm
it.
talking
Do it.
about these issues, and men will listen because it's funny. And it's not threatening. It's not one of these, feely, touchy, analytical things. It's a scream. And it's a great way because after he's done laughing, you guys it's easier for you to talk about
Then
these
you can
things.
talk about it.
Absolutely. That's why our seminars are so much fun. Because couples come, they start laughing, the guys are all laughing. Most guys that come to my seminar, watch them when they come in, especially the guys who've never been there before. They're dragging in, they don't want to be there. They think, this is stupid, I hate this, I better get sex out of this deal. That's all they're thinking, They don't want to be, because most marriage seminars stink. They just do. They're just boring and analytical and they don't want to be there. But by the time they're done on that first night, they love me more than the women do. I mean, they are into it, they're laughing, they're realizing this is safe, this is great. And when guys get in that kind of atmosphere, they open up. So I would recommend that is a tool if you really want to be, if it's uncomfortable for you, get all of that resource because it will really help open up. Other than that, sit down and just talk to the boy and say, hey, you need to understand this ain't working for me. This instant sex thing isn't working for me. You need to pay attention to me. You need to help me with the kids. You need to, la, 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 la. Which brings us to the point.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I am watching this television show in Milwaukee a few years ago. And the whole thing is about why can't women experience orgasm? I mean, that's the whole thing. It certainly wasn't a Christian show. Most people wouldn't want to talk about those kinds of things. But I thought, I talk about this stuff, I should listen to this. And of course, the women are all, what's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? How come we can't? And they had these psychologists and doctors on, and they're all trying to explain. But then they would take these commercial breaks. And when they go to the commercial, they do have these teasers. You guys have seen teasers, looking at the guys on the camera here, where you ask a question and then they give you different answers, A, B, or C, and then you have to wait around for the answer, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in this one break, they say, what is the average length of a man's sexual experience? A, 2 minutes, B, 10 minutes, C, 20 minutes. And I went to commercial. I looked at my wife and I said, you know what the answer is? She goes, no, what? I said, A, 2 minutes. She goes, oh, it is not. I said, you watch. So come back from the commercial. The answer is, ding, A, 2 minutes. And then they go on, what's wrong with us? How come we can't experience orgasm? I say, hello, did you see the screen? 2 minutes, guys, 2 minutes. And that's the average. Mm-hmm. That's the average. This is horrible. Okay? Guys, we can do better than the 2-minute drill. A woman cannot get satisfied in 2 minutes. Now, ladies, on the other hand, the key to a guy breaking the 2-minute drill is an active sex life. Mm-hmm. So if he only has sex once every other week or once a month, I promise you, it's over. You know what I'm talking about? So you only get good at this deal if you spend time with it and invest in it. Mm-hmm. It is time that we have got to start talking about this stuff in the right way, instead of letting Hollywood infect us, because everything that Hollywood talks about in this area is from a lust perspective. Let me give you an example. I was watching this show, Family Feud. You ever see this thing?
Sure.
100 people surveyed, top answers, ding, that kind of thing. Well, this one week they had Soap Opera Week on, and they had all these great stars, and these are the leaders of romance in our culture today. And I got to hand it to them. They're really good looking. but they were just dumb as a box of rocks. I mean, they were awful at the game. It was just terrible. So anyway, they have this question: what can you do to improve your romantic life? Okay?
You would think they would know that.
Pretty basic, right?
Sure.
These guys are the pros. These are the guys who know all about romance. They've established romance for America. So he comes up to the first guy and says, okay, 100 people surveyed. What can you do to improve your romantic life? And he goes, okay, have an affair. That was his answer. Have an affair.
Wow.
And I remember the host, I think it was Richard Dawson or whatever, looked at him like, how can you be so dumb and still breathe? And the other rocks are all going, good answer, good answer, good answer. It was absurd. So he goes, okay, have an affair. Of course, it was wrong. Nobody's going to have that for an answer. And that's the way this culture thinks. I know of psychiatrists, people who have come and told me that their psychiatrist has told them, in order to improve their marriage, have an affair.
Amazing.
I mean, it's absurd and stupid. Why? Because it's all about lust. The more you lust, the more your better your sex life will be, which is what we talked about last week.
Right.
But the more you get into lust, the worse your sex life will be. These people are lying to you. They don't know what they're talking about. So he goes up to the next rock, says, okay, what can you do to improve your romantic life? And it's a woman this time. She goes, watch porno films together. And they're all going, good answer, good answer.
Wow.
One to the third, couldn't get anything right. So they go over to the other box of rocks, and they couldn't get one right. I'd never seen it before. They couldn't get one answer right. These so-called romantic leaders of our world, everything they had to say had to do with some kind of perverted lust or some stupidity. Mm-hmm. And of course, then they reveal the answers, stuff that any moron knows, spend time with each other, take her out for a romantic dinner, bring her flowers. They couldn't get one answer correct. This is the culture. This is the world that is filling our heads with all this wonderful advice about marriage. And of course, our divorce rate keeps going up and up and up and up. You would think people would get a clue. Mm-hmm. Which brings us back to this whole idea of it's what a successful marriage is not about how you feel. It's not even about thinking the right things. It's about doing the right things. Right. If you will do the right things, you will succeed. Mm-hmm. But we've got people all doing the wrong things. And as we talked about last week, people have all these excuses for why their marriage didn't work. Mm-hmm. We didn't have enough money, or we were too young.
Well, and we were 19 when we got married.
What is too young? It's just an excuse. It's just an excuse. So now people are waiting longer and longer to get married, correct?
Yes, they are.
I mean, people are 30, 35 years old before they get married, for crying out loud, thinking that if they're right about this, the longer they wait to get married, the lower the divorce rate should go, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what has happened?
It's going up.
It is going up.
Yes.
It is going up. It is nonsense. It is absurd. It is not about being a certain age. It's not about having the right amount of money. It's not about having the right education. It's about people doing the right things. And sadly, pastors, and I appreciate your show doing this because you're showing people how to do. Mm-hmm. The sad thing is most people don't know what to do.
Right.
They just expect things will happen automatically. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they don't. And it's very sad.
Well, I want to. This is such great information, and I appreciate you coming on the show with us and helping us to be able to tackle this and actually be able to talk about it. And I want to ask about some practical ways. You're so good at dealing with the basic philosophies of why and how we should do things, but we've got two different types of married people watching our program. The one type who says, my marriage is in trouble. While I'm listening to you talk, I realize all the signs are there that we're in trouble. Then there are the people who are watching the show who feel like, well, our in all the ways that you mentioned before, financially, as far as our careers, every area of our marriage is going pretty good, and sexually, our life is not all that hot, but we're happy with it. I mean, we get together once every 2 or 3 weeks, a hot month. We get together maybe once every 2 weeks, and we're happy with that. We're satisfied with that.
Yeah, let me say this. If that is in fact the case, great. Knock yourselves out. I mean, I don't care. It's not a contest. I mean, if you're both happy, great. But what's normally happening is you'll have one partner, usually the man, but not always. You'll have one partner who is very frustrated because the other one is denying them.
But they've learned to live with it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But they don't ever live with it. See, they turn to pornography and they turn to fantasizing, and
something is going on behind the scenes.
Something goes
the
on.
wife thinks everything's okay.
Yes.
And it's not.
It's not okay. Girls, unless your husband is really unique, okay, most men are going to feel the need for a sexual release about every 72 hours. That's 3 days. That's on average. Some less, some more. Again, if you're both happy once a year, I don't care. But usually a man's going to feel, if you are in a relationship with a man, and you haven't talked about this thing, oh man, I hope it's a man, which is a whole other show, but, and you're only having sex once every other week or once a month and stuff like that, and you think it's no big deal, you're fooling yourself, and you're probably creating an atmosphere where he's doing some very destructive things, trying to find his own release. Guys turn to their own fantasies.
And probably if she'll ask, if she'll just, I think a lot of wives avoid talking about this issue because they're afraid of the answer. They've gotten to the point where their husbands are compliant. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Their husbands are compliant, and so why muddy the water? I'm happy, and he's living with it, and so why do I want to open this can of worms of saying, are you really happy with our sexual relationship?
Yeah, they get compliant. That's what I talked about last week. Men will either fight with you about it or they become compliant. And what's really happening when they're compliant, they begin to start shutting down sexually or turning to pornography or other things. Then what happens is later, the wife comes back to him, and now she won't get anything from him, and now she's upset. Why do you think all the jokes on television are about the young sexually frustrated man and the older sexually frustrated women?
Interesting.
That's exactly what happens. Most of the time in my seminars, the biggest response is I'll have women coming to me with tears running down their face saying, I did this to him and now he won't pay attention to me. Girls, what goes around comes around, and you're going to get into a situation where now all the kids start growing up and you'll start feeling alive sexually, and now he's shut down or he's so angry or bitter or just isn't interested anymore. It's not worth it. Take the time to make these investments now. You need to pay attention to these things, or you're going to really wind up with a mess. And I'm sure there's people right now that they are in a mess. And they go, what do I do? You really ought to come and get help. You ought to come to people. Find, I don't know what I don't know what resources you guys offer, or if there's resources in here, but things aren't just going to get better by themselves.
Right.
You're going to have to do something. There is help for you, and you really ought to take advantage of the help.
Great. This has been a really, really good, really informative program. We're going to come back one more time next week. We're going to have Mark Gungor back with us, and we're going to continue to talk about sex and intimacy and marriage, and talk about some of the questions that you probably have that we haven't answered yet. So be sure and go to Mark's website and check out Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. That's www.laughyourway.com.
That's it.
Is that it? And go on that website and check out some of the resources that Mark has. They're terrific. We use them in our church. We use them in counseling. People come to see us about certain marriage issues, and we send them right to that page. We might get a chance at the. I know that this is a program about intimacy and marriage, but the flag page that you have is really, really good. Is there some way we can, on the next program, we can work in the flag page?
Sure.
Will it work with a discussion on sex and intimacy?
Absolutely.
Will it? Good.
Absolutely.
Well, you're not going to want to miss the next program when we talk about the flag page that's offered on www.laughyourway.com and how it can help your marriage as well. We've enjoyed being with you today for Making Your Marriage Work. I'm Steve Corona.
I'm Connie Corona. Work on your marriage this week. It's worth it.